Hello and welcome to June 5th, where we're reading 1 Kings 18 and 19. Now, in these two chapters, you cover Elijah. Elijah has two sides to him. One of them, he's very faithful to God and very powerful and very strong and very confident. And in one of them, he's an absolute coward who runs away from every confrontation ever. Which one do you want to be? Probably not the second one, but you'll see both sides of him as you go in chapter 18 and chapter 19. Chapter 18 has this very famous occasion where Elijah fights the prophets at Mount Carmel. If you're familiar with that story, basically the challenge is 450 prophets of Baal who come up and they pray to their god Baal to ignite a sacrifice. And Baal doesn't do it for hours and hours. Elijah, on the other hand, ultimately calls on God just once at the very end of the day, and God immediately sends fire down to eat the sacrifice, thus proving that God is real and Baal is not. And popular opinion doesn't really have anything to do with it. It doesn't matter how many people are praying to Baal, he's not going to answer them. It doesn't matter how few people are praying to God, God has power. Jehovah is the Lord, pay attention to him. This is a kind of a publicity stunt on behalf of God to get Ahab to think about who God is, hopefully to direct him towards the truth and towards righteousness. It's not ultimately going to work, but at least it's a good try, and Elijah is attempting to tell him about the word of the Lord. Of course, when you get into chapter 19, after this great victory, Elijah executes all the other prophets of Baal, the 450 of them. He kills them in the dry brook until it flows with the blood of his enemies, which is a beautiful picture to think about. Anyway, in chapter 19, after this amazing victory, basically, Ahab's wife Jezebel, she's pretty bad. She writes to Elijah and says, I'm going to kill you now. And so Elijah freaks out and runs away off to the desert. He actually runs all the way down to Mount Sinai. And there he meets with God, and essentially Elijah complains that he's alone in this, and he's not able to do all this work. And God says, you know what? Grow up. Nobody cares. You've got work to do still. You got a few jobs left. And then after you fulfill those jobs, I'll let you go. One of them is to appoint a new king in Israel to wipe out the old dynasty of Ahab. One of them is to appoint a new king in Syria, just because. And one of them is to appoint a new prophet that God's going to work with. That prophet is Elisha, and he's found at the very tail end of chapter 19. Elijah goes back, he finds Elisha, he picks him to be his successor. And now Elisha is going to follow Elijah around to learn from him, to benefit from being in his presence, and ultimately to become that new representative of God after Elijah leaves in the first couple of chapters of 2 Kings. But we'll talk about that in a few days, early next week. I'll see you tomorrow, where we're going to finish up our reading this week by covering chapters 20 and 21.